So AMD is at it again. It's not enough to go after Intel every couple of years and kick it. Anyhow, it also needs to go after NVIDIA. And let's face it, last time they did so, it did not go exactly as planned. Remember the Vega thingy? But with its new Navi series of video card and its latest gaming-centric 7nm RDNA architecture, AMD is kind of changing the understanding of what gaming is and specifically at what pricing level. Today, we are reviewing the Radeon RX 5700 XT, and obviously there is a lot of hype around this card, especially knowing that 2 days before its launch, AMD had dropped dramatically its price to be right in front of the RTX 2060 Super. What are they doing? First, a little bit of context. The RX 5700 XT is the first of its kind, using AMD's brand new gaming-focused RDNA 7nm architecture, and it's marking quite a philosophical turn, resetting the whole GPU business, well, its GPU business, towards us, the gaming community. And before going into the nitty specs, let's take a look at the obvious. The RX 5700 XT is by far the best looking card I have ever been given to play with. It is curved, it is sexy. I mean, I can go on and on and on. The long dancing lines and its deep red logo makes it look like a cooling piece of lava. I mean, it's still recognizable as an AMD card, but just such a cool looking one. Back to the card, the RX 5700 XT can support up to 4 display outputs, 1 HDMI 2.0B and 3 1.4 display ports. It is powered by 2 8+6 pin plugs, which will fit it up to 225 watts. And that's such an improvement compared to its previous Vega predecessors, which at points would use up to 400 watts, bringing a collection of problems, obviously ranging from overheating to, well, your computer crashing. So a much more efficient and I'm tempted to say mature card in terms of energy consumption. Specs-wise, the RX 5700 XT is powered by the buzz-making Navi 10 XT GPU manufactured on the 7nm RDNA 1.0 architecture. And even though this is not the first time AMD releases a 7nm lithography video card, it is a very first time it is combining the 7nm lithography to a brand new architecture. And as I said in the introduction, AMD has decided to go back to its roots and to focus its new architecture, video card architecture, to do one thing and one thing only: gaming. And it does so superbly. The Navi 10 boasts 40 computing units, which translate into 2,560 SP cores. That's much more than its equally priced RTX 2060 Super, and just as much as its quite more expensive RTX 2070 Super. It has a base clock of 1605 MHz and an unprecedented boost clock of 1905 MHz. And this thing has been designed to be overclocked, and overclocked, of course, you will. One thing to be noted here is that AMD has decided to make away from the more expensive 2048-bit bus HBMI2 memory and adopted a more conventional 256-bit 8GB of DDR6 RAM, again showing us a more gaming focus application of the video card. And unsurprisingly, with this kind of specs, the RX 5700 XT makes no prisoner and has no problem obliterating its natural competitor, the RTX 2060 Super. Depending on the game 3D engine, the 5700 XT shows variable performances. In Battlefield 5, it largely surpassed not only the 2060 Super, but even the much more expensive RTX 2080, and that was a one-off because for all the other games tested, it more or less was performing as fast or as good as an RTX 2070 Super. So again, way beyond the reach of its similarly priced 2060 Super. But there is a but, because there is always a but. Given the current specs and with a single blower configuration, the RX 5700 XT arcless heel is its temps during gaming mode, and on more demanding titles such as Battlefield 5, I experienced temps going all the way to 77 degrees Celsius, and I had to crank up the fan up to 100% to get it back to a more stable and safe 70 degrees Celsius. And despite being a harder card, I have to give a kudos to AMD for their single blower, because they did a pretty good job at keeping it away from the 90 degrees danger zone. And I'm not so worried about it because I know that all the other manufacturers, as they produce their own version of RX 5700 XT, will come with different cooling solutions with two blowers, larger coolers, and etc. So something to keep an eye on, but not to worry too much about. Now, that is also AMD first attempt at PCIe 4.0 in terms of video cards. And obviously that meant benchmarking it all over again on an X570 part motherboard, coupled with a Ryzen 3600X CPU to inspect any traces of performance gain. But obviously there were none, or none significant enough to make a difference in your day-to-day gaming. And that's simply because the RX 5700 XT is far from bottlenecking the 16 PCIe 3.0 lane standards. Therefore, there is no obvious real advantages using the RX 5700 XT on the PCIe 4.0 motherboard. It's simply going to be performing as well on anything on the market available today. But undoubtedly, this will change with next generation of video cards, which undoubtedly, again, will bottleneck our good old PCIe 3.0. In conclusion, the RX 5700 XT will cost you anywhere between $400 to $500 plus, depending where you are in the world and your market. And before I go on, I want to first note on how much AMD has progressed since its Vega release. The RDNA architecture, being a gaming-centric architecture, is extremely good at doing gaming-focused tasks, at crunching a lot of graphics, and doing so much more efficiently than the Vega ever hoped to do. Actually, this card will give you about 15 to 20% better performances than the Vega 64, with almost 40% less electricity at its peak. So I have to note this. There are a couple of things I was surprised to see, and as usual, AMD is taking risks. They decided not to include any kind of ray tracing processors to answer the RT cores that NVIDIA has introduced last year. And I understand that risky choice. In the past year, NVIDIA has made so much about ray tracing, made so much publicity around it, and it is a great technology. I love it when I'm doing gaming with it. But the gaming studios are not interested, it seems, into adopting it. In the past 12 months, we only seen 3 major releases of RT-enabled and compatible games: Battlefield 5, Metro Exodus, and Tomb Raider. And it's simply not enough. And by releasing ray tracing less cards, AMD is hoping to further weaken NVIDIA ray tracing master card. The only real critics I could make is with that very specific single blower design, is the high temperatures that I witnessed. Even though it did a great job at keeping it away from 90 degrees, I think that 75 to 80 degrees Celsius is a little bit high for my taste. It doesn't take away the fact that we are dealing with a turning point. I believe that's as dramatic as that. in the gaming industry. Not only AMD has proven that its 7 nanometer lithography is mature for real high performance components, but it delivered a new architecture which takes full advantage of it and can surpass anything at this price range available today. And that will undoubtedly shake NVIDIA to its ray tracing core.